And welcome to Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football, presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code Owls Flightdeck 10 at checkout, you'll save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, and support local. I am Tim Capper. You can find me on X at Repact. That's REPPACT.
And I'm Cliffy D. Feel free to shoot me a follow on X as well, over at Cliffy D.
What's that, Cliff? What? I can't hear you. Can you please turn up your speaker? Hello? Hello, Cliff? Are you there?
I know where you're going with this, and yes, absolutely.
Yes. And you know what? And I feel that we don't necessarily give the love to the guys that we have on each week. So we might as well go ahead and talk about our guest this week. It is the first timer on the show. We're going to be speaking with wide receiver Cole Spieker, and stay tuned for that, because we taped it. It wasn't taped today, but I mean it was still a great interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun. It was awesome to have Cole on. We've been wanting to have him on for a little while. Finally, the stars aligned for him to be here on the flight deck with us, and we were definitely excited to have him on. So make sure you stay tuned, folks, because you're what better way to get to know these players than to tune into our show and hear us talk to them? Because we want to know, just like you folks, what makes these guys tick, what interests these guys, what story do they have to tell? And that's what we're here to do, is help get that story for you folks, for you listeners and watchers. So make sure you tune in and check it out. It is one heck of a pretty good interview, I must say.
Yep, stay tuned for that. We could go, what'd you say again, Cliff? Because I mean, sellout crowd at Percival Molson Stadium this week, even though the Alouettes did lose to the BC Lions. I mean, second time that the Owls have been able to draw over 23,000 twice in a single regular season for the first time since 2015. It was great to see, man. It really, I mean, despite the outcome itself, it's really fun to see how fans have started to flock back to Percival Molson Stadium again.
Oh, absolutely. And a testament to just how huge it was to see this sellout crowd was where I normally park my car when I get to the stadium, because I left from the office to go down to the stadium. And traffic in Montreal is, let's face it, it's a nightmare. On the best of days, it's a nightmare. But normally, where I normally park my car, it's usually not a problem, because I know a lot of the bigger garages, they get filled up right away, the ones that are actually closest to the stadium. But you know things, you know this game was going to be sold out, not just by how the Alouettes announced it, but just the fact that I couldn't park in my normal spot. Like, it was jam packed by the time I got to I got to the parking lot a good hour and a bit before the game started. So I mean, like, normally that's more than enough time, especially on a weeknight game. But no dice. And then all the other surrounding lots were jammed up too. Like, I literally had to schlep all the way down well into Mile End to park. I think it was a good 25-minute walk from the stadium, as opposed to the usual 10-minute walk, from the parking lot where I go to the stadium. It was crazy. Like, I almost felt we had to take an Uber to get back to my car, if you can believe that. But
just to give a quick context of people, we were over by you were parked over by Schwartz's, weren't you?
Further down from Schwartz's.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I was way down Saint Laurent. Now, Saint Laurent Street stretches quite a bit, but
the main does go quite a bit, I will admit. But to be in that well-known historic area, even beyond it, yeah.
And let me tell you, whoever wasn't at the game getting their party on, it was crazy just trying to navigate that concrete jungle. But wow, I mean, it's part of the fun of living in the big city. But my goodness, like, it was an adventure just to get to the car to go home, especially after a loss like that, after doing Flight Deck Live, and gives you time to think at least. But holy moly, just dodging all the traffic and everything, it was wild.
Well, and we'll talk about too. Some few nice surprises that we had post game and stuff like that. We were able to get a little bit of insight, not necessarily from Alouette players. So it was pretty fun, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, as you were saying, the Alouettes did lose to the BC Lions 37-23. It's BC's second straight win in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. and by double digits, second time double digits. And usually that's not the case for BC when they come to Montreal. It's just, I just don't know what it was. Everybody, most of the guys were back. We had a lot of people who were back on the active roster for this game itself, Cliff. It was really just a matter of the opportunities that the Alouettes were given that they could not take advantage of, because when you're given your quarterback throws for 3 interceptions, usually you think you're going to come away with a win, and usually when you do win the turnover battle, you win the game too. It's not the case. Not the case this week, because they just could not take advantage of again, as I said, of the opportunities they were given.
Absolutely. And it's funny, with all the hype of Nathan Rourke coming in and playing his first game as a BC Lion in Montreal, he didn't look all that impressive, to tell you the truth. I mean, he got the job done. Let's make that clear. He did what he had to do, and he got the job done. So kudos to him for that. But I mean, he didn't look like the world beater everybody made him out to be. I mean, that's credit to Montreal's defense for getting him figured out fairly quickly. But at the same time, too, once he got himself, he was able to brush off those mistakes, and he did an excellent job, quite frankly, of carving up this Alouettes defense. And it was just death by 1,000 paper cuts. Just the way that, just little, dinks and dunks, and just, the way that he was just able to make plays happen. Great use of William Stanback, former Alouette, in the backfield. I mean, and he was motivated too. Don't get it wrong. He had this date circled on his calendar for a long, long time. He wanted to show the Alouettes they made a big mistake in letting him walk. And sure enough, he was able to score a touchdown against his former team. Racked up a lot of yardage on the ground. I mean, got the win as well. So, I mean,
and now the CFL leader in rushing currently as we're taping. So,
listen, hey, I'm thrilled for him. I mean, we've always liked William. He's always been a great guy. Even Alouettes Nation over there, obviously they want the Alouettes to win, but they couldn't help but be happy too for William Stanback, just for an outstanding performance, to come back home and just, be reunited with the city that basically gave him a home here in the Canadian Football League. But now he's out in BC, and he's truly killing it. So, I mean, nothing but love for William. It's unfortunate the Alouettes had to lose to him, but listen, I guess there's a theme going on here, right? I mean, the last game against Edmonton, Geno Lewis comes back home for the first time since leaving in free agency, scores a tutty.
Yeah.
William Stanback comes back home with BC for the first time since leaving in free agency, scores a tutty. Did we lose any other major touchdown scorers in free agency and they are going to be coming back to Percival Wilson? Because I hope not, because this is a trend I would like to see bucked sooner rather than later.
Well, we can think of currently at least of the 2 scheduled home games that we currently have left on the schedule. So it's I can't think of any. So I think we're okay in that sense, but still,
it's not a trend you want to be a part of, to tell you the truth.
No, Alouettes, despite the 4 turnovers the Alouettes received, Cliff, 3 interceptions and a fumble, they were only able to come away with 13 points off those turnovers. You mentioned before about William Stanback. He had a fumble and a tip drill pass that ended up being an interception, but he also made up for it with his rushing touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. It just seemed that all momentum that and all the opportunities that the Alouettes were given, despite that, I don't think it was necessarily that they were shooting themselves in the foot. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of they could never regain that momentum. Especially if you look back at that touchdown drive at the end of the second quarter, knowing that the Alouettes were going to be getting the ball back after halftime. Pulled within 4, I think it was.
Yep.
And then opening kickoff, first play, Cody fumbles, turns it over, and they got close again, but really they weren't able to get over that hump and get any closer.
Yeah, I just felt like execution wasn't there for the Alouettes, and it's unfortunate because after that 2-minute drill that led to a touchdown scored by Cole Spieker, who will be on the show later on today, don't forget. It was interesting because we've talked about this for weeks now, how the first half of a game for the Alouettes is usually terrible, but they get it figured out, make the second half adjustments, and they come out like gangbusters in the second half. This time, though, They showed signs of life, which is encouraging. So that all 23,000 fans weren't going to try to leave early to beat the traffic. Okay, they got a chance. They got a chance. Let's see what they do in the second half. And then, as you said, opening drive, Cody fumbles, turns the ball over, and it never really felt like they were. Well, I mean, never truly really regained momentum. You know what I mean? Like for every one thing they did, BC was able to counter it, and then they would add something on top of that, and then you're back to playing from behind, and it's just eventually they just dug themselves into a hole that they couldn't get out of, and that's something that we haven't really truly seen from this Alouettes team in 2024. I mean, even when I think back to the loss against Toronto earlier this year at home, you could say that losing Cody Fajardo and Marc-Antoine Dequoy really took the wind out of their sails, and they just couldn't recover as a result. Whereas in this case, there was no major injuries that we know of that happened. It was just a simple matter of coming off the bye week, and the team just didn't. They looked like the team that traveled 3 time zones to get there and play this game. Whereas BC, everything for them was clicking. I mean, it wasn't perfect. As I said, Nathan Rourke definitely looked average, to tell you the truth. But still, the little things that had to be done, they were able to do, and they execute them properly. Their defense absolutely played fantastic football. I mean, they were just simply the better team. That's all it was on that day, the BC Lions were that much better than the Montreal Alouettes.
Yeah, and we were talking about that one game with Cody, where I think he was the second quarter where it was, he had 200 yards in one quarter alone. The Alouettes in the third quarter here alone, this says it all. They held the ball for 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and they had 1 first down. So, I mean, they haven't, the Owls have having woes in the third quarter, kind of, but I mean, we're not talking on the level that the Edmonton Elks have this year. But still, when you're that close of a game, it kind of, Cody fumbling on that first play in the second half kind of put a damper on things, obviously. But it was, again, as you said, they just never got any closer. But and I don't know if it, looking at the game overall, I don't know if it really exposed a lot of things that our teams taking advantage of certain things, or it's just a matter that the Alouettes are, I talked about it before, not shooting themselves in the foot, but maybe they were. Because it just like some games, the Owls just can't get anything going.
One thing I will say though is like a lot of the tackling was, I'm sorry to say, piss poor. It was just
on the William Stanback touchdown, yes,
for example, and not to mention the 2 goal line touchdowns, one by David Mackey, the other one by Nathan Rourke, which essentially put the nail in the coffin for the Alouettes.
Yeah, don't remind me.
I mean, that inexcusable. Okay, the Mackey one, that one they kind of caught them napping a little bit, which, okay, they don't really do short yardage, BC, like with a quarterback.
I'd say Mackey's not a quarterback.
No, he's not. He's a fullback. So, I mean, you can't even call it a quarterback sneak. It was a fullback sneak. But I'll just to gain the first down, but he hit the hole. I can't even say he hit the hole. He just was able to go off tackle and was basically untouched going into the end zone. Like, okay, that happens. But when Nathan Rourke did it, I mean, same idea. That he should have been stopped right there and then, and just nothing, absolutely nothing. And like, it almost felt at that point too, like there was just no, at that point it felt like they already conceded defeat, and this was just kind of like, okay, just put the bullet in and put us out of our misery, kind of thing. And
if they would have held the 3 points at that point, the Owls still would. I think they would have only been back by 8. So,
yeah.
Again, there were many things to be desired, and to me, if you did watch Flightdeck live, I did say a couple of things I'm still standing by. We'll talk about here when we talk about stats and stuff like that here in a couple of minutes. But I mean, it's even though this team is 10-2, this team has not been a perfect team, I don't think, at all this year. There's always been at least one quarter where it's just been mediocre, to say the least.
Or even one half. I mean,
yeah, that too.
I mean, yeah, this team has been far from perfect. I mean, you're right. 10-2. I mean, you are what your record says you are, and yes, the Alouettes are a very successful football team. But some of again, there's been some instances like where you see like just little dents in the armor, and you're like, oh, okay. And again, if you're winning, you don't tend to notice it, but when you lose, those get blown up big time. Like they're automatically under a microscope. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why can't the team do this? It's frustrating because they're better than that. You know that they should be able to hang with a team like the BC Lions, who again, they've had their ups and downs, but they seem to be getting their act together. I think with Nathan Rourke finally getting comfortable again and back to being the quarterback that we saw in 2022, who basically lit up the league. I mean, by and large, the Alouettes were able to still hang with this team, mostly because of the mistakes Rourke was making and not executing as well. But at some point, you got to. A lot of those field goals should have been touchdowns, for example. That would have made a huge difference. You got to make those stops, for example. And, like those two sneak touchdowns that BC scored, had they been able to stop them, or God forbid, just at least, okay, if they get the first down and that's it, then it opens up a whole new possibility of trying to get the ball back, or at least mitigating some of the damage that's done. But when you look, that's 14 points right there.
That's what you lost by. There it is, right there.
Yeah. what else can you say at that point? I mean, I'm sorry, like the maybe this is a loss that the Alouettes had to have. You know what I mean? Like, kind of bring them down to earth and realize that, okay, we can't just coast by and hope for the second half to fall in our favor. It doesn't work that way. I mean, you got to earn in this league. You got to earn every single point. You got to earn every single win. And I know this Alouettes team is much better than that performance that we saw last Friday. Full stop.
And by the way, I've mentioned over the past couple of years where the Alouettes have gone on certain streaks. They've done 5 wins, 1 loss so far twice this year. That's all I'll say. Yeah. But I really think some things have been uncovered still, and certain things that have not been fixed at all. And when we go over the stats here, I think it kind of I think it really does show that there are still there's still a lot of work to do on certain portions of not only the offense but the defense itself. For the game, Cody Fajardo, he was 27 to 37, 240 yards, interception, and a touchdown. That interception was on one of the final drives in the fourth quarter. That led to 3 points.
Yeah.
The rushing game, and this is where, and I mentioned this on Flightdeck Live, this is where I am not. This is one of the things that's been bothering me all season, and we brought up a couple of interesting points, which we weren't able to do the quick research on. But you know who led the team, Cliff? Cody Fajardo. He led us in rushing, and it's a comment that you made pre-game, pre-show, that really hit the nail on the head. Is that at least, and again, we don't know how many times it is until we do the actual full research, but Cody or our quarterback has been our leading rusher more than once this season out of its current 12 games that we've played. And it's really concerning because you check out the current stats, and the Owls are last in the league in rushing yards. Last. They haven't even gotten 1,000 yet. And we're 12 games in.
And it's not because we don't have top quality running backs, too. I mean, Walter Fletcher has been having an outstanding season, but more as a receiver as opposed to a rusher. Like, it's easy to say, oh, Walter Fletcher's been playing outstanding football. You're absolutely right. He has been. I mean, whatever you need him to do, whether it's run the rock, catch the rock, or pass block, or we can call him Captain Checkdown. Like you need him to go and get that second and short. He's your guy. But the fact that he's not posting outstanding numbers as a running back, as a rusher, is definitely concerning. Jesuit Antwi has not come nearly close. Other than his onside punting against Toronto, I truly haven't seen or heard very much from him. And it's not because he's not a good player, because he is 100% an absolutely great player. But this Alouettes team simply doesn't want to rush, unless they're the quarterback. Unless it's Cody Fajardo going through his reads, not liking what he does, and then tuck the ball and run.
Jesuit Antwi, 8 attempts, 9 yards.
Wow.
Even
See,
Dominic Davis, who's been with us a shorter period of time, has 29 yards on 10 rushes.
and a lot of those are goal line plunges, but still, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not a very flattering stat. I mean, you do not want your quarterback leading the team in rushing at all. I mean, that doesn't compute. I'm sorry to say, unless all of a sudden you've got Colin Kaepernick as your quarterback, and even then, I mean, Cody Fajardo, yes, they went to the same school, and maybe that's where he learned it from. I don't know, but I mean, I'm sorry, but we want Cody throwing touchdowns, not running for first downs. I mean,
184 yards for Cody this year on 31 attempts, an average of 5.9. Now, to be fair, the Alouettes are not last when it comes currently when it comes to yards per game per rush. Sorry, they're at 5, which is decent, which is really what you want your running backs to be at 5 and above.
Mm-hmm.
As a team, they're at 5. But the problem is, though, not very many rushing attempts. Last in the league in rushing yards. There we go. And to me, it's been and I don't know where you've mentioned it before. Going back to the historical play calls for Jason Moss about how he really was a pro pass guy, especially if you have the quarterback. We get that.
Mm-hmm.
But in the CFL, you really need to mix it up. And
you need a balanced attack.
And the Owls have been in games enough that they would be able to use the running game to their advantage. That just has not been the case this year.
No, and a lot of Fletcher's yards, especially receiving, if you didn't know better, you'd swear they were like run plays because of how short they are. And yeah, his yards after catch have been absolutely fantastic as well. And he's been able to do a lot of the things that a running back does. Problem is, it counts more as a receiver, which, okay, fine. He's getting the ball. He's going downfield. He's scoring touchdowns. He's doing those things that you expect him to do. Like, again, he is having a fantastic season. No one's denying that. But he's not doing what his job is. Like, he's a running back. He's supposed to be a running back. Like, he's not the wide back like Deebo Samuel is in the NFL. That hybrid of running back / wide receiver. But in a sense, he kind of is now because he's more relied upon as a receiver. And again, it's not that this team doesn't have a wealth of absolutely talented receivers at Cody's disposal, but more often than not, it just seems like, once again, Captain Checkdown to the rescue. And okay, great. If you're winning and you're 10-2, you're not complaining too much. And I don't want this to sound like complaining, but at the same time, it would just be nice. You're absolutely right. It's a concern, especially when the quarterback ends up leading the team in rushing. Like, that shouldn't be at all. It'd be like the kicker leading the team in touchdowns, like scoring, like throwing touchdowns. Doesn't make sense.
Fletcher, by the way, has 57 receptions this year, Cliff, for 533 yards. He may be 4th on the team, but currently, obviously, with Tyson Philpott being out for as long as he has, he's at 779. That just goes to show how much I think the Alouettes have been able to, mix things up when it comes to the different guys who, next man up mentality with these guys. But again, Fletch has basically just more than half of receiving versus his rushing attempts, which is 96. He only has 96 rushing attempts,
which again does not compute to me. It doesn't, and yet he's still having a great season. It's wild to think about. I mean, he's essentially a safety valve for Cody Fajardo. If he can't go deep, if he can't find any of the usual receivers, look for Fletch. He'll more likely be open because everybody's concentrating on the Tyson Philpotts and the Charleston Rambos and such. But I mean, it's just incredible that the rushing on this team is not where we feel it should be. And is a lot of that because William Stanback did leave? Like, were we expecting too much out of Walter Fletcher as a running back? I don't think so, because it's not. I'm not saying he can't do the job. I truly do believe he's a fantastic running back, but he's also a fantastic receiver too. But that's not his job. I mean, it's one of those weird sort of dichotomies right now with this team, and I wish I had a better answer for it, but I truly don't. I mean, listen, you can question the methods, but you can't argue with the results.
Yeah,
You don't go
exactly.
10-2 by accident. And if that's how you're going to go 10-2 and beyond, then so be it. But it's just it's just one of those things where the destination is the important part, but the journey to get there, it's kind of leaving you scratching your head just a little bit.
Yeah. By the way, speaking to what you're just commenting about, Walter Fletcher led the team in receiving, 8 targets, 8 receptions for 72 yards.
He was perfect.
Yep. Cole Spieker had 46 yards and a touchdown. Charleston, Reggie White Jr. back on the roster, had 39 yards. Shedler Furvius had 35. Charleston Rambo had 31, and Jose Barbone making his debut. I think it's his debut.
Actually, no, it's the second game.
Sorry, it was second game was 17. I knew that was wrong, and I knew that was wrong when I read that in the media. I knew that was wrong. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. Yeah. So,
but boy, the couple of receptions he did have were very timely. I have to say
that the ballsy one on 3rd and short, where it was necessary that we get a first down on that.
Yeah, I actually said you got to change number 7's name to Cajones Fajardo, because to be able to throw that ball like that, it was reminiscent of the 3rd and 5 in the Grey Cup last year to Cole Spieker to extend that drive, which led to the game-winning touchdown. It was just that same sort of ballsy kind of throw that pretty much caught everybody sleeping, right?
Yeah,
and set up a 1st and goal, which I got to talk about this. I'm sorry, this.
Please.
Dominique Davis had a chance to score a touchdown. Everything lined up perfectly. Kicked out to the far side and almost did a stutter step trying to go into the end zone and got
slowed down.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like he hesitated. I'm like, first of all, why are you going so far out? As soon as you get the edge, fall forward. I don't understand how this didn't work. Like that BC was able to blow him up right there and stop that touchdown. Yes, he did eventually get into the end zone on the next play, but still, it's like, why'd you? And the risk for something to go wrong was absolutely there. I mean, Dominic Davis is a hell of a player, but that was overthinking. It's like, just, you're making this more harder than what it absolutely has to be. As soon as you hit the edge, go forward. Like, why are you trying to get cutesy on a quarterback sneak like that? Like, guess what? Nathan Work did it, and he was perfectly fine. But
I mean, he almost had one. Dominic almost had one too, but the turf monster got him. But I fully understand what you're talking about. I do, and just, you know what?
It kind of took away from the Jose Barbone moment, just because that should have been an automatic score on the next play. So, once the fresh set of downs, 1st and goal, that should have been just automatic right there, especially with someone as talented as Dominique Davis. Like, just fall forward. Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? Just fall forward.
Yeah.
Which he did on the next play, but
yeah,
just do it right the first time,
I mean, there were positive too. I would say a hell of a kicking game from our kickers this week. I mean, Joseph Zima and his corner kicks, man. His coffin kick. They were just.
Oh my!
He did an amazing job. And obviously, hats off to Maltos, obviously too, and the ballsy. I went and finally was able to go back and watch it. The onside kick in the 4th.
Oh my!
Wow! I mean, it had enough. It's so weird. It hadn't. It's funny. It had enough spin on it that it went backwards. This is one of those ones. Unfortunately, that the Alouettes weren't able to capitalize on it that much. They they had to punt, right? They didn't get a touchdown. They had to punt.
Yeah, they essentially went 2 and out. But
yeah, but still, props to them. Great kicking game, which is what we like to see. The defense itself stood out. I mean, we got to give props across the board also. I mean, Tyrese Beverett with a sack. Isaac Demi Berglund with 2 sacks. I mean, with the sacks that he had, holy crap!
Oh, he was out for blood, and as an Alouette supporter, you love to see it. I mean, he had himself a game. He was on another level last Friday.
Yep. And then obviously we got to talk about the interceptions. Not one, not two, but three. Bryce Cosby, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, and Deontay Ruffin also each came away with one. And again, everything was set up. And Titus Wall, by the way, had the fumble return, fumble recovery from was that on the Stanback? Yeah, that was on the Stanback fumble.
Yes.
Again, these guys stood out. Darnell Sankey, 11 total tackles. But again, and I am still, Cliff, I'm going to stick by my guns from what, even after all, it's been a couple of days since I said it. I still think, based on what the score was and some of the stuff that really could have been done a lot better, I still think, even though Toronto scored almost just as many points in our last loss, I still think that this was the defense's worst game of the year. Tackling, just some things didn't make sense. I understand you're giving Nathan Rourke some leeway. I mean, it just seemed everything was consistently 10-yard outs, and it's like that stopping the run game. And I don't know. To me, again, if I'm wrong, please let me know. DM me, please, because I still think that this was the Alouettes defense worst game of the year, despite all the accolades.
Yeah, they just looked listless at times. Shoddy tackling. I mean, a lot of the scores could have been prevented, or at least, as I said, maybe instead of touchdowns, it could have been field goals, and that would have given Montreal still a fighting chance to get back into this game. But I mean, it simply just came down to lack of execution more than anything else. I mean, and it's not because they're a terrible defense, because you're right, 3 interceptions, and I mean, the Deontay Ruffin interception, like, he read the mail perfectly. Like my God, I mean, you couldn't do better than that. I mean, you could say that Dequoy was just in the right place at the right time with that tip drill off of Stanback's fingertips, but that counts, and that gives you the opportunity. I mean,
2 of the 3 run tip drills, 2 of the 3 interceptions were tip drills.
Yep. But I mean, so this is not a terrible defense by any stretch of the imagination, but giving Nathan Rourke time and space to work. I mean, credit to the BC Lions O-line, who a lot of guys were playing their first game, yet somehow were able to keep the Alouettes honest, which was remarkable in and of itself. But I just way too many times were a lot of chunk plays that were being given up by this defense, and pair that with some terrible tackling, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And again, this run defense, yes, they were going up against William Stanback, who arguably is one of the best running backs in this league still. And I'm sure that the pressure was on to keep him under control, but this run defense has really been suffering over the past few weeks, and I keep waiting for it to get better, and it just doesn't feel like it's happening anytime soon. And that, to me, is concerning more than anything else. I mean, interceptions, they're part of the game. They happen, but you can't bet on that. You can't hang your hat on the fact that, we're going to pick this guy off. It doesn't work that way. You got to do the work in order to prevent this team from constantly getting first down after first down after first down. And if you're giving up that many yards rushing, you're just making the job a lot harder than what it absolutely has to be. And ultimately what the backbreaker was, and again, that comes back to the defense, was those 2 sneak touchdowns that they gave up. I mean, those were like to start the game and essentially end the game as well. And those were daggers. They absolutely were daggers.
Maybe it would have been a difference if the Alouettes had gotten that 2-point convert earlier in the game. I don't know. Again, you do that. It might have been something different. Al's getting a single later on. If they had gone for the extra point, it would have equated basically a 2-point convert. But again, it is what it is. It's a loss it's a 1 in the loss column. But the Alouettes, as we've seen this week, they've already started up going to Calgary, and they're going to see what they can do over in Cowtown. So I mean, and we'll get to that. But last words before we bring Cole in.
Well, this team 10-2, still very impressive. As we've talked about, though, this team cannot go 16-2. So hopefully, it's kind of funny. I'm thinking about this. Like, remember last year, the Alouettes lost the home and home series against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Quite handily, I might say. Okay, that happens. It's the Alouettes have to go out to BC Place later this year on a short week, no less.
Yep.
I really don't see them winning that game. I just hope and pray. It's to the point where I almost feel like maybe just stay home, just forfeit the game, take the L, because nothing good is going to come out of that trip. I'm sorry to say. I would much rather focus on going to BC Place in late November as opposed to mid-October. You know what I mean?
I'll be happy. By the way, if they continue with their streaks, I'll be happy with. You know what? If they do go 5-1 to finish the season, I'll be happy with that. That means they win in BC, so they lose the home finale to Winnipeg. That's fine by me but you know what? Again, we'll see what happens.
They'd be 15-3.
Yep.
Which you can win the Grey Cup.
Tie the franchise record, but again, that's
15-3 does win a Grey Cup. We have seen that. In 2009, we saw that.
Yeah. So
it's 16-2 that doesn't work for any team, as we saw last year in Toronto and Edmonton way back in the day. Just as I said, either go 17-1 or 15-3.
Yeah.
Don't go 16-2.
Yeah. We talked about it before. We wanted to bring in somebody new that we hadn't talked to before, and we were lucky enough to be able to get an upcoming wide receiver with the Alouettes. So without further ado, Cliff, let's go ahead and let's bring in wide receiver Cole Spieker. Hey, we got somebody new on the show this week. Somebody we've been wanting to have for a while. He has stood out quite a bit ever since his very first start and his very first career touchdown in that what we like to call that infamous preseason game back in 2022, the very last game of the year. But ever since then, the guy's made a huge name for himself. He's started quite a few games recently, and obviously we want to talk about his career and how he got to the Alouettes and what he thinks of the city and stuff like that. Without further ado, number 17, Cole Loud Spieker. Hey, Cole. Thanks for joining us, man.
Hey, thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
I got to ask at least first up. Have you heard that one yet? And Loud Speaker as of lately, and are you like really tired of it?
I've heard it a couple of times, loudspeaker or turn up the speaker, but no, it doesn't get old.
Especially since your name technically, it sounds like the word speaker, but it's not spelled the same. So but you got to have some fun with it, right? I mean,
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Hey, what was the one that we used a few weeks ago when you went? I think it was when you went off and had that two touchdown game. Yeah, we Speaker of the House. That was the name of our of the podcast that week. So it was Speaker of the House.
I love that one. Yeah. I heard that one once in college. I heard Speaker of the House. So that's a newer one. I like it.
Go. Hey, Cole, when it comes to football, I mean, obviously, with the Alouettes now, but we want to know how specifically did you get into football, man? Because it's, we know where you went to college and stuff like that, but I mean, it's how in particular did you get into football?
Yeah, so it started when I was younger, started playing when I was in 4th grade, and me and my dad have always loved watching, grew up in Minnesota, so we loved watching the Minnesota Vikings growing up. I was a huge Vikings fan and just fell in love with the game at a very young age, and I knew that was my favorite sport. That's what I wanted to do moving forward. So it started way back when I was little and has continued till today.
Now, were you a Chris Carter guy or I guess more of a Randy Moss guy?
Randy Moss was my guy growing up. Randy Moss and then Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, all those guys.
Nice. Was it always wide receiver in football, or did you ever play? Were you a 2-position type of guy, or what was it for you?
Played a little bit of tight end, a little bit of running back, but I'd say the main one was usually wide receiver for most of the time growing up and through high school.
Okay. Obviously, I'm looking at here. So Wisconsin lacrosse. It is what is it now? They're a Division III, right?
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask you is what in particular, I'm sure you may have heard about the considered pedigree of, not only Minnesota guys here in the CFL, but Division III guys and stuff like that. What is it? Do you think about all these guys who are doing so well from Division III and obviously Minnesota to the state of Minnesota doing so well in the CFL?
Yeah, I think for Division III especially, it's just we've always been guys that work hard. We went to smaller schools and we know it's going to be a big challenge, like playing for pro football and after college. So it's just, I think work ethic from the beginning is a huge reason I think we've had some success in this next level, and we just continue to put in the work and take it one day at a time to be the best player we can be on the field and have the biggest impact possible.
Do you think the D3 guys really don't get the look that, I say, a D2 or a Division One would get, or is it just a matter of, because obviously we don't know your story, and that's what we want to find out when it comes to how you got to came to the Alouettes. But do you find that D3 guys really don't get that look that they should?
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely was really challenging coming out of college, trying to get noticed, and I had to go to a lot of different tryouts and workouts to get in front of scouts because not many came to our school. I think we only had two throughout my time there that came to our school and checked out like our practice. So it was definitely hard to get noticed. And then even like having good numbers in college, they still kind of had that thing. Oh, it's just D3 numbers. So that was always a challenge to get over that and really prove myself as a receiver.
Was there, because I know they're obviously for Division One, but I think they invite more than just Division One, because I think some Canadian schools have been invited to like Senior Bowl in
Mhm.
Mobile, Alabama. It's one of those things that you were ever looked at for in going and playing in, or is that again? I don't know when it comes to D3. I don't much know about D3, so
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I tried to get into some of those senior bowls, but didn't have any success coming out of college. And actually, right now we have one guy on my team that is on the watch list for the Reese's Senior Bowl. So there definitely has been getting more notice and more eyes on the Division 3 level. So that's very exciting to see, especially my old school. So
That's cool.
mhm.
Obviously, you're talking about getting noticed and stuff like that. I mean, how in particular, you talk about going to camps and you talk about going to tryouts and stuff like that. How did you get? When was the first time you heard that you were noticed by the CFL, in particular the Alouettes, and what was the process for you signing with the Owls?
Yeah, so the first contact I had with the CFL was at this combine that I paid a couple of bucks to go to in Indianapolis, where there was like I think 6 teams, 6 CFL teams had scouts there, and that's where I met the first Montreal scout after running 40, doing all the testing, doing some one-on-ones against the DBs, and I did good enough to get that he liked me, and he invited me to one of their private tryouts down in Texas. So that's where I went to the Montreal only tryout, and then I did the same thing. So we did our testing again, and this time it was in front of Danny was there, the GM, and some other coaches. So this was in front of them. Did really good in the one-on-ones, and the day after that, they offered me a contract to bring me up to training camp.
That's amazing. So didn't even go through being on the neg list, eh, Cliff? That's actually pretty. That's actually pretty good.
Well, I always say you can't hide talent, and obviously, Cole,
Yeah.
you are extremely talented. So I'm sure it was just a simple matter of you just got to get some eyes on you, and like to let them see what you're able to do.
Yep. Yeah, another thing that was challenging my senior year was the COVID year. So once I came out, a lot of the like NFL mini camps that I might have had a chance to get into, they all got canceled, and that was my big time to get eyes on me and get in front of people and show them what I can do. So that's why I really had to take advantage of these tryouts and go to as many as possible to get my name out there.
Was it frustrating as an athlete with everything basically shutting down? Because as I said, we talked to a few who've dealt obviously, guys who were on the Alouettes roster and stuff like that, and who were trying to play with the Alouettes, who had just been drafted or whatnot. But how as an athlete were you able to keep yourself in shape and get ready? Because as you said, all pro days were canceled and everything else was really shut down until 2020.
Yeah, it was definitely a frustrating time, but I always just stay positive and trust the process and learn some great patience, especially to just be patient, keep working. And I had a great gym where I was living, and great trainers that I was going in there every day for a couple hours, and we were hammering speed training, weightlifting, running routes all the time. So really surrounding myself with them was a great opportunity to keep myself ready for training camp when the time came.
Now, did you work with anyone that may have already been in the CFL and was able to sort of give you some pointers as to what to expect if you managed to make it up to Canada?
Uh, I worked out a couple times with Brandon Zilstra, who was up here. So I ran routes
Mhm.
with him. So he definitely told me about the CFL, and that was kind of the first CFL player I've ever met. So I didn't know much about it before then, but So he was my one connection. He was another Minnesota guy. But other than that, that's about it.
How about Jake Winicki? He's also a former Alouette and also a Minnesota guy. Have you crossed paths with him at any point, or?
I didn't meet him until I came up for my rookie year, and we had a great connection right away, being two Minnesota guys, and he was a great guy, and he definitely was a great role model and leader to me and showing me the ropes. So I'm very blessed to have met him and to have him on the team my rookie year.
So speaking of rookie, what was it like coming to play obviously the 3-down game and the 110-yard field game? Because you're a guy who played U.S. college football and basically college for U.S. rules football for your entire life. What was it like getting used to the different rules? Obviously, the waggle and the 3 downs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what was your experience like that? Obviously, I'm sure you your first experience was at camp.
Yeah. At that training camp was the first time ever waggling in my life, and so that definitely took some time just to get the timing down and trusting the waggle. So that took some time, and just the overall game definitely took a little bit, but I definitely found more success with more space on the field and being able to get open. I thought it played to the advantage of the receiver, so I was definitely excited to be involved in a game like that.
I'm sure we're all going to remember that certain something that happened. Oh, I don't know, versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, a certain particular catch, on a certain particular down. Yes, I think people will remember you for quite a while there, Cole.
Yeah, that was a fun game, and I'll never forget that catch. 3rd and 5. That was awesome.
Yeah. Take us through that. I mean, that drive, as far as I'm concerned, was cinema. Maybe we're a little biased because of our affiliation with the Alouettes, but I mean the lead up to it, and then just 3rd and 5, Cody throws a prayer up basically, and you come down with it to basically move the chains and keep the drive alive. I mean, at what point do you feel that Cody had the confidence in you to be able to say, "Okay, I'm throwing it to you. Be ready"?
Yeah, I think it starts with Coach Moss, and it was a gutsy call, and he obviously trusted me that I was going to be able to make a play with the game on the line. And me and Cody started growing more and more chemistry throughout the year, and he definitely trusted me, and he put a great pass and gave me an opportunity to go move us into scoring positions. So it was amazing, and yeah, that's about it.
were you the one route? Were you the one receiver on that one, or were you second or third within the choice on the play itself?
Yeah, I was the first option on that play call. We had 2 outs from the slots, and then I was outside on the line. And if I got behind the DB at all, he was going to throw it up. So I knew it was coming. Had a great chance of being the target, so I was ready for it. I was able to capitalize.
Nice.
Can you believe they went cover 0 on you guys?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. But we kind of knew that coming in, that they're gonna, especially the corner was gonna try to jump that out, because we throw those quick games, especially 3rd and 5, just to try to move the chains. So I think it was an amazing play call.
Like you said, the cojones, if you will, of Anthony Calvillo and Jason Moss to be able to come up with that and to recognize that as well. I mean, you talk about doing the work, talk about the preparation and everything that goes in a championship game like that. I mean, like, this is fans may not necessarily understand or appreciate, but the fact that you guys were able to be all on the same page and be able to execute that is nothing short of phenomenal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and our offensive coaches all year, including this season, have put us in great positions to make plays, put us in positions to score touchdowns, and they put in a lot of work, and it's really amazing to have those guys behind us, and those guys believe in us and trust us when the time comes.
We got to ask, because we've asked a few, and no, it's not that we want to know because we come and want to take it from you, but where do you keep your championship ring?
I had it with me for a while, but then the last bye I brought it home and I left it with my parents so they can show all their friends and have some fun with it for now.
that thing is we saw it at camp, and that thing is just a thing of beauty. It really, really is. I mean, I'm sure it dwarfs. We've seen what players have, and it just, no matter how big the hands are of these guys, of your teammates, it just dwarfs your hand.
Yeah, definitely. And every time I show one of my family members, they're amazed at the size of it. I was amazed on that opening night when we got the rings. So it's an incredible ring. Great design.
Now, make sure your folks do not take it and try to trade it for some hot dish or something like that. I know what you Minnesota guys are like when it comes to that.
Right. Yeah, remind my dad. Don't lose that thing.
Hey, sometimes there's some reasoning behind a player's number and stuff like that, and we were curious to know. I mean, is there any symbolism behind the current number that you're wearing now?
That's just the number I got in college. So I had that where I started growing as a receiver, and that's really when my career took off. So I think I'm just gonna stick with it, and it's been one of my favorite numbers. So nothing too significant, but just some history behind it.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right, let's talk about this 2024 season. It seems like, based on the incredible 3rd and 5 catch that you made to help this Alouettes team win the Grey Cup, Cody Fajardo is trusting you a lot more as far as finding you in the end zone and that. Talk to us about that this year as it sits right now. Obviously, you're coming in with a championship high, and you feel like you take on anyone in the world, and you clearly are, being 10-2. Talk to us about this season so far, what you've seen, and just the overall experience of being a Grey Cup champion and defending that title.
Yeah, like you said, we've been building on the last season and putting it together and kind of taking that next step as a team, and just playing complementary football, three-phase football, and just supporting each other. And personally, I feel like I've been able to get more involved in the pass game this year and help my team win when my number's called, and especially in a deep receiver room where any night any one of us could go off for 100, and anyone can step up. So it's really exciting offense to be a part of, and everyone's seen our defense and seen what they can do, and they always come ready to play.
Now, let's talk about that fade route just before the end of the first half last Friday. Absolutely incredible. What concentration you had on the ball. I mean, when Cody throws that to you, like, how excited are you to be able to have the opportunity to catch a ball like that?
Yeah, he's the most accurate quarterback in the CFL, so it's awesome having him throw fade balls, and he puts in perfect spot where only I can get it, only I can have a chance at it. So I just know I gotta go up and capitalize on the play. When it's balls in the air, we got to come down with it. So that's my mindset every time when Cody throws it up.
I would think, Cliff, that they wouldn't want to think about it, because if they think too much, they may actually drop the ball, and we don't want Cole dropping these passes at all.
He doesn't seem to, though. That's the thing. Speaking of balls, I got to ask you: do you still have your first touchdown ball?
Yes, I got my first touchdown ball and then the Grey Cup touchdown ball. So those are my two that I got.
The 3rd and 5 ball, you still got that? That's the one you're talking about, right?
No.
No.
The touchdown I had earlier. Yeah.
Yes, my bad.
Remember, Cliff, Cole is not just a one-catch pony. Come on, man. Come on.
He surely is not. And the fact that you dusted Adam Bighill the way you did in that Grey Cup game.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
That was a great play call on that one. And I think Tyson has the 3rd and 5 ball because he scored the next play. So I think that's his, but
fair.
I can visit whenever. So that's all right with me.
Now, talk to us about, we know what Coach Moss has instilled on the team these past 2 years, and it's been a huge important part of how he's trying to, to lead the team. Obviously, the logo that you guys have used the last 2 years, the team logo that you guys have used the last 2 years, the jet, all the symbolism within it, the 514, the province of Quebec, etc. Explain to me what it's like to live by that mantra, because obviously for those who haven't lived in Quebec before, who may not know any French, because I know you as players, we know that you guys do go through some training when it comes to French, but what's it like to live by what Coach Moss is, I don't want to say teaching to you, but is preaching to you?
Yeah, just to be a part of the culture that he's set up here and built from day one. It's amazing to be a part of, and it's just great connection with my teammates, the coaches, and then the community and the whole province of Quebec. And I feel like we continue to grow together, and it's been a fun ride, and wouldn't want to play for anyone else.
And he's come up with some great, he came up with a new one too this year. He's come out with his infamous saying, the hanger. He keeps, Coach Moss keeps on coming up with some gems, I will admit. And, obviously with this year, with you guys having issues with, keeping guys healthy, unfortunately, but it is always, all season, it's been the next man up mentality, which has worked fantastic, obviously. When you, this far into the season, I mean, again, what allows you to stay focused on the game despite the record, and to just stay as you seem very humble, and to stay as humble as you are, and just to go out there and play every day?
I think it starts with just the culture that Coach Moss has built and the consistency. We show up, we work hard at practice, we put in the mental preparation, they put in the work in the game plan, and we just consistently are going out there and doing everything we have to do each day to win that week. So go 1-0, like you said earlier. That's the mindset, and even break it down even further, going 1-0 each day in practice. So we just take it one step at a time, growing together, next man up. We got a very deep and talented team, so we got a lot of guys that can step up when it's their time and their number's called.
How exciting is it to have Austin Mack back in Montreal?
Yeah, I was very excited to see him when he got back, and we got a great friendship, and he's obviously an amazing player. So he'll definitely, when he gets back from his ankle injury, it'll be awesome to have him back out there making plays and take a lot of the eyes of the defense, leaving the rest of us open. So it's great to have him.
Now, when all these guys get healthy, and I'm talking about guys like Tyson Philpott, Keon Julian Grant, yourself, Austin Mack, Tyler Snead. I mean, you talk about like the wealth of talent at the receiver position on this team. I mean, do you ever start to worry that I'm going to get lost in all of this? Because Cody can only throw the ball at one person at a time, right?
Yeah, no, I don't try to think about that. I just, whoever's out there, we're going to step up. We're going to support each other, and we believe in each other, and we're just going to go make the plays when our numbers are called and help each other make plays, help them be excited when they make plays, because we're all brothers and we're all family. So we support everyone that's going to be on the field for the Owls.
Birds of a feather. How perfect for the Alouettes, right, Tim?
Yep.
Oh yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah. Now, before we let you go, Cole, we're going to throw you some softballs here. We want you to have some. First, since you've been in Montreal, anything in particular that has surprised you, whether it be about the city or about the province? Because obviously you've been in 2 locations for camp. But anything that has really surprised you and stuck out the most in your mind since you've been here?
I would just say just the fans. They've been incredible, and they're super supportive. They're always positive no matter what. Even after we play bad and lost a couple games, like they're still there supporting us and know we'll bounce back and believe in us. So they're amazing fans, and all the French was a little challenging at first just to kind of get around, especially in Trois Riviera for my first training camp. It was a little challenging, but I've grown to appreciate it, and it feels like I'm a lot farther than home. So, but it's a great place, great city, a lot of great people that I've met here.
And you know, Cliff, he actually pronounced Trois-Rivières very well too. I noticed very well.
You're absolutely right. So I was about to ask you, like, are you still practicing your French? Are you still using it? But clearly you must be, because you nailed it. Trois-Rivières. You said it perfectly.
Yeah, that's my 3rd year here, so I'm definitely going to keep practicing this year. I figured it's about time that I be able to talk French. So
yeah, well, a little more than just bonjour and merci, right?
Yeah, that was first 2 years. That was all I was saying. So,
but we can tell you this, Cole, and I'm sure as you know now, it's that no matter if it is just a bonjour or a je m'appelle Cole, it means the most to the fans. Obviously, just that little bit of French means a lot to them.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you like when it comes to eating out? I mean, is there any particular place in the city that you have to go to that's on? If you were to rate right now, say, this is my number 1 place, where would it be?
I'm a pretty simple man. So far, my favorite is Poulet Rouge. I could have that every day. But also, there's a lot of good steak spots that I've tried down in Old Port. Been to Gibby's, been to the Keg. So like sitting down, having a nice steak, especially when my family comes up. We definitely went down there and tried out some spots.
Yeah, I will admit the Keg over down at the Old Port is very nice. And we're going to ask our obligatory question, Cliff. Cole, have you tried poutine, and do you like it?
I have tried it, and my family was just up here, and I had a couple of them try it for the first time, and I love it. Okay. I can have it plain. I can have it with chicken on.
Okay, there you go. You answer my question. If it's just plain old, or if it's going to be something else. Okay.
They're both good. As long as the fries are good, that's the biggest part.
I agree. Yeah, and the cheese curds are fresh. Yeah.
Fresh cheese curds, good fries. and it hits every time.
Exactly.
Cole, just saying that right there and then is going to all but guarantee the love from everybody here in Montreal and Quebec.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
What do you do? What do you do in your off time, Cole? Anything in particular? Is just because obviously I know practices can be taxing sometimes, but anything you do to just wind down?
I like going to the movies with a couple of the other receivers. We'll go and just relax in the theater, and then I love working out and lifting weights and in the sauna. I'm a trainer back home in Wisconsin, so in the off season, so that's a big part of what I enjoy doing, being in the weight room and having fun there. Taking Sneed through a couple workouts, so that's about it. Movies and working out and FaceTime with the family. Those are the biggest.
Okay.
There's no height requirement to get into his gym, right?
No height requirements, so Sneed's good. Yeah.
Out of all the places you've been, within Quebec or within Canada itself, which one new city has stood out the most to you?
Besides Montreal?
Well, I mean, I don't know where you've been in Quebec. I mean, besides Trois-Rivières or Saint Jerome. I mean, I don't know if you've been to Quebec City. I don't know if you've been to Saint-Sauveur. I don't know where you've been, but I'm just curious.
I haven't, besides the training camp spots, I haven't been much outside of Montreal. So Montreal is definitely an incredible city. I love being in the big city, growing up in a small town. So it's very different for me. So I've really enjoyed that. Been wanting to get up to Quebec City one of these bye weeks. Might have to plan a trip soon. But I'd definitely say Montreal's been awesome.
Because I think Tyson likes fishing, right? If I remember correctly, is it Tyson likes fishing, or is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he
yeah.
likes
Okay, next time I will suggest a place up in Saint-Sauveur. It's only about 45 minutes away from the city, but you're in the Laurentian Mountains, Cole.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
you can't miss. Or Mont Tremblant. Mont Tremblant is gorgeous too. So
yeah, that'd be a great trip.
Yeah. Before we let you go, Cole, obviously we appreciate your time. We obviously wish you the best in Calgary this week. Make sure we bring home another dub. If people were to want to follow you on social media, where would they do so?
On Instagram, my handle is Cole Spieker, just my name @Cole Spieker, and that's the main social media for me. I'm not on Facebook or any of the other ones.
Yeah,
you are also on Twitter or X, I believe, at Speaker Cole.
Yeah, a little smaller. I don't go on there as much, so Instagram is my main one, but at Speaker Cole for Twitter as well.
Okay, cool. There you go, folks. Give the man a follow, will you? Jeez. Cole, thank you so much for doing this. Absolutely, you killed it. Wishing you all the best for not just the game in Calgary, but for the rest of the season as we move towards hopefully getting back to the Grey Cup and making it a back-to-back scenario. To me, I know you remember that Grey Cup party, the Grey Cup parade. I'm pretty sure you'd love to attend another one.
Oh yeah, I'd definitely love to attend another one this year. So back to work, one and all each week, off to Calgary. Appreciate you guys.
Hopefully he continues to live up to his name as Cole Loudspeaker. I mean, the guy seems so humble. He really, really is.
Yeah, what a treat it was to talk to him. And yes, I encourage all of Alouettes Nation to get behind Cole Spieker, get behind Loud too. Like we gotta make that a thing. We gotta make that, and I think he's on board with it. As you said, he's very humble, very, very gracious. So I don't think he likes a lot of attention on him. But when you're scoring touchdowns and you're making those money catches that gets everybody out of their seats, I'm sorry, the attention's going to come your way. So Cole, get ready, because if you haven't realized it by now, you are a big part of what makes this Alouettes team so fantastic. We appreciate Cole Spieker coming on the Alouettes Flightdeck to chat with us, and anytime he wants to come back on and chat some ball, the door's wide open, man. Just hit us up.
Yeah. Before we continue, I said we had some stories to talk about post game and talk about the upcoming game versus Stampeders. Just want to remind you that we are on social media. Many places you can find us. If you want to find the entire archive of the audio podcast, you can do so by heading over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. But there you can also see some other links too. You can also go to our X account, which is at Alouettes FL Deck. Facebook, which is over at Alouettes Flight Deck Pod, and then Instagram and YouTube, and that's at Alouettes Flight Deck. What else can you find over on YouTube? Well, you can not only find the audio version, you can find the video version also of the podcast, and you can also find our companion post-game show of Flight Deck Live, where Cliffy and I will be going live after the game, no matter where it is or no matter where we are. Again, head up, make sure you check all of them. You're over on YouTube. Make sure you do give us a like and hit the bell to let you guys know when we are going live. Also, lastly, too, don't want to forget too that we also are streaming our post game show over on Twitch. That is twitch.tv/Alouettes Flight Deck. And same thing. You can hit the bell and get, you know what? If you're there too, because you know you do have a Prime sub, you can actually subscribe to the channel, and we greatly appreciate it. We really would. Also, if you're looking for some merch, especially for the upcoming get together on Thanksgiving, head over to our shop over at flightdeckgear.ca, where you can order a Cartoon Bird 56 shirt or any of the others that you've seen us wear over the years, or anything else that may be on the shop itself. So be greatly appreciated if you just head over there, check it out, and see what you guys like. And again, that's our merch is over at flightdeckgear.ca.
And that does fall under support local, because we are based in Montreal. So if you buy from the flightdeckgear.ca, you are supporting local. So always support local.
Yeah. So we had some fun. We had some fun post game. Just at least wanted to mention it. We mentioned how many guys were there. There were actually quite a few ex-Montrealers that were there that we were able to speak with post game. You and I, as everybody knows, before we go live, we try to speak with as many players as possible, get the lay of the land, and try to find out some information that we can able to give to you, whether it be here in the podcast or on Flight Deck Live. But we talked to a few guys. We were able to see, like, Tyrell Richards. Great to see him back. Heard one hell of a story, to say the least. Yeah, all I will say is that I hope his nether region, it feels a little bit better. I will leave it at that. I don't wish that upon anybody, male or female.
No,
I don't wish that upon anybody.
In the old breadbasket, as they used to say.
Yeah. But besides Ty, we're also able to see quite a few ex-Montreal Alouettes, weren't we?
We sure were. Very excited to get reacquainted with former kicker for the Alouettes, Sean White, who I had to laugh because he has such a cult following here. He really does. And he didn't believe it. He didn't want to believe it at first, but I would tell him all the time, like, listen, dude, people are still showing you the love, man. Like, especially in our section too. Every time when Boris Bede had taken over for Sean White and he bricked a field goal, which he unfortunately did more often than not, people were, we want Sean White.
Boris Bede breaking a kick?
I know, right? It's crazy to think, but yeah, that happened. But again, Sean gets all the love. He really does, and he's such a great guy, and he is definitely missed here in Montreal. And so happy to see him have the success that he is for his hometown team, because he is a BC boy. So absolutely makes perfect sense for him to go back to the Lions, and still kicking at a high level too. So I mean, it's funny. Some people were thinking he was maybe washed by the time he left the Alouettes. I'm like, far from it. In fact, if anything, what do you do since he left the Alouettes? Goes to Edmonton, wins a Grey Cup, spends a couple of years there, goes back home to BC, doing phenomenal there. He had his 46 kick streak broken in Ottawa a couple weeks ago, unfortunately. But I mean, dude's just kicking at a high level and looks absolutely fantastic. I'm looking forward to having him on the show to sit and talk about his time in Montreal. But a lot of people were congregating right to him, which was absolutely fantastic to see. I mean, as I told him, fans still love you, man, and especially here in Montreal. So it was definitely great to see Whitey again. Saw John Bowman, who is the defensive line coach for the Alouettes. We've had him on the show as well, and always great to see John as well.
BC Lions.
Sorry?
BC Lions. Coach for the BC Lions.
Oh, shit.
Alouettes.
Freudian slip, I guess.
We wish he were. Sure, why not? We'll have him, but still. But yes, it was good seeing Bowman too.
Well, and this is not to disparage the work that Corvey Irvin is doing for the defensive line here in Montreal.
Yeah.
But, oh, man, just, always great to see Bo as well. I mean, I remember his playing days here. He was absolutely phenomenal, and you can tell he loves coming back to Montreal as well. I still think a big part of him is here in the 514. And in a perfect world, we'd find a way to have him on the coaching staff as well. But he's killing it out in BC. I mean, those guys are doing a fantastic job under his tutelage. So props to him for that. And of course, it wouldn't be a BC Lions game without seeing our quarterback, Vernon Adams Jr. And it was kind of funny because we didn't see him until just before the team buses were leaving. Again, we were out in the field and we were waiting, after talking with Whitey and Bowman and a couple other folks.
Doing Flightdeck Live. Yeah.
All that stuff. Just kind of keeping an eye out, sort of like, just looking around, just trying to see if we can catch a glimpse of VA. And he was nowhere to be found. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I mean, this is his only trip to Montreal, right? I mean, maybe if we're lucky, we'll see him in November when we go to Vancouver for the Grey Cup. But, we don't want to hang your hat on that necessarily. So I thought, okay, well, we did the thing. We did everything that we were supposed to do. But then, unfortunately, no VAs. I'm like, okay, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. We packed up and we started making our way out of the stadium and saw the buses were still there for the opposing team. Like, oh, okay. So I walked down, saw Whitey again, and didn't get a chance to properly say goodbye to him. So I wanted to make sure at least, do that. So we chatted a little bit more while they were loading up the equipment and everything before they headed off to the airport. And just as he was about to leave, I'm like, hey, just if you happen to see Vernon, could you send him our way just so we can say a quick hello? Said, yeah, no problem. And just as they're starting to pack up, like, I don't know if he actually did see him or not, but sure enough, as we were ready to watch the buses pull out, sure enough, I hear Cliffy. And I look, I'm like, oh, there he is. There he is. Right away, big hug, everything. VA, our guy is there, and it was so good to chat with Vernon. Not for very long, of course, and of course we weren't going to hold up the buses just to sit and shoot the breeze with VA, but so good to see Vernon again. He's always got so much love for the city, for the Alouettes, for us, which we are so appreciative of. To be able to call this guy a friend is beyond compare. I mean, it's so happy for him. It's unfortunate though with his injury and the return of Nathan Rourke. It almost feels like he's going to be kind of put to the side again, which I sincerely hope not. I sincerely hope he has a chance to go back to that MOP style of play he was doing earlier this year.
Yeah,
because he was looking fantastic before he got hurt, and it would suck for him to lose his job. Like after Nathan Rourke left, the BC Lions did become Vernon's team, and he's done a phenomenal job as far as I'm concerned. I mean, to the surprise of no one but us, but I mean, he's really shown that he can lead a CFL team without question. And maybe it's just bad luck. Maybe it's just the timing. Who knows what's going on when it comes to Vernon Adams and why he's not truly being given the chance to do what he's able to do. But we want the best for him without question. I even jokingly said, hey, as far as we're concerned, this is a Grey Cup preview, right? And he's like, I agree. Like he fully expects the Alouettes to be in the Grey Cup representing the East, and he fully expects the BC Lions to be representing the West, like especially with them hosting the Grey Cup game.
Yeah.
The pressure is definitely on for the BC Lions to be in that game. And they're going to do everything they can to do that. And I'll tell you, a BC Lions Montreal Alouettes game would be truly a matchup of, as far as I'm concerned, the best of the best that this league has to offer. So always love spending time with Vernon, however much we can get from him. And he's still our quarterback. He's still our day one guy. And I was just so happy that before the team left to go back home, that we had a chance to sit and talk with Vernon, even if it was just for a few minutes.
And it's going to be a very interesting off season, considering that with Sean White and VA and their contracts coming up. It could be very interesting what happens this off season. So we'll leave it at that. But I mean, it could be a very. I heard not necessarily from either of those two, but I heard the words February pop up a few times in our post game conversations. So. It's gonna be a very interesting offseason. I think not necessarily in BC and Montreal, but across the league. So
yeah, like of those two guys, like one feels like a foregone conclusion, but the other one too, but for different reasons. I mean, like I said, a lot can happen between now and next February when free agency starts. But I mean, personally, if I'm a Mardoman and Neil McAvoy, I'm doing what I can to keep these guys in BC. But I mean, if you're going to keep Vernon Adams, you got to play him. I mean, you can't pay him all this money just to hold the clipboard. And you're already paying Nathan Rourke a crap ton of money as well. So, I mean, I guess something's going to have to give. And VA is just too good to be sitting on the sidelines as a cheerleader. I mean, he's not that guy. He has proven himself to be a leader and can take, I'd go so far as to say, almost any team to a championship. If you give him the opportunity and you give him the chance to do what he does best, there's no question in my mind he can lead any team to the Grey Cup. So he's going to want to do that as well. He's going to want to show that he can do that. So if it's not going to be with BC, then I can think of easily 8 other teams that would be wise to consider adding him to the mix. So we'll see what happens in February, especially with what we learned and what we sort of heard about as far as like February 2025 goes. But it'll make for a very interesting offseason, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Alouettes are putting their franchise record road winning streak on the line this week, heading into Calgary, where they in past recent years they've had some good luck in Calgary, but I mean it's not always been the case. It's always been a tough win, no matter who they play out west, whether it be Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, or BC. But they're going in as 10-2. They do. I mean, it's funny to say the Ottawa Red Blacks are still breathing on their. They're still breathing behind on their necks, and they're still that close. And I'm sure they want to be able to continue with how the winning ways on the road, and see what happens going into Ottawa next week. So this is an Alouettes team that. The loss that they're coming off of, Cliff, and even though it's I think it's very rare going into Calgary that you're a favorite, and that's what the Alouettes are. They're a 5.5 point favorite with an over under of 50.5. Going into the game on Saturday. This team coming off the loss to BC, knowing how good they can be, and knowing right now the limbo. It seems that the quarterback situation is in Calgary. Everything seems right for the Alouettes to get back with their winning ways.
I thought you were going to say back on the horse, which would have been a perfect segue.
Oh, well, yeah.
Tim.
I know.
But I digress. I look at Calgary's quarterbacking situation, and it is not pretty. In fact, I look at the team as a whole, and they've got some talent there, but they too are just, I feel like they're a rudderless ship. I mean, and I guess it starts at the top, right? Dave Dickinson is the coach and GM. And typically when you're doing both of those roles, like if you chase 2 rabbits, you lose them both. And I think that's what it is it's obviously very difficult to be able to pull that off successfully, being both coach and general manager. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like at this point, after this season, a decision is going to have to be made whether Dave Dickinson is either the coach or the GM or neither. He can't be both. He really can't. It's, one or the other, but not both, or go in a different direction altogether, possibly. But I mean, a lot of the decision making has just like a lot of the play calling too has been really baffling, I find. I mean, if Jake Maier is going to be a quarterback in this league, he's got to be better. And simply put, I haven't seen very much from him that suggests that could be a thing. Matthew Schultz went to Calgary in free agency, and I thought he was going to, do laps around Jake Maier, because quite frankly, I think Matthew Schultz is a much, much better quarterback than what Jake Maier is. But the brain trust in Calgary seems to disagree with my thoughts, and they've, win, lose, or draw. Well, actually, I don't think they've had a draw this year, but win or lose, they've stuck by Jake Maier up until last week when they gave the ball to Logan Bonner, sorry, and he didn't do much better either. Now, again, he's been on the sidelines for pretty much all year. Right now, the quarterback situation in Calgary is a mess because, quite frankly, Jake Maier, he's not it. At least maybe if he was playing for another team and in another system, he might work out. But as it sits with Calgary, And I know he had some big shoes to fill when he replaced Bo Levi Mitchell, but wow, I just don't see Jake Maier as a CFL quarterback, at least not in Calgary anyways. Like, maybe the expectations are too high. Maybe the pressure to replace a Bo Levi Mitchell just made, the weight of that is probably just too much for him to bear. I don't know, but I mean, something's going to have to give when it comes to the quarterback position, because there's some talent on this Calgary Stampeders team. I mean, as long as you've got Reggie Bagleton, you're going to be fine, because he is just that good of a receiver. But you can't keep throwing to him every single down, because eventually the other team's going to catch on and just put 2-3 guys on him if need be. But I just don't see the weapons truly for Calgary that they've had in years past. And when your quarterback's not making the best decisions either, I mean, it just all snowballs from there. And I think for Montreal to get themselves back on track after, to rinse this bitter taste out of the loss from BC, I think this game against Calgary could not have come at a better time for the Montreal Alouettes. I think this is the perfect game for them to remind themselves of who they are, because they played Calgary earlier this year, and they struggled a little bit, but they got it together. I mean, Calgary played well despite Jake Maier being so-so in Montreal.
Yeah.
And I don't see that changing, to tell you the truth. I think what you see with Jake Maier is what you're going to get. And if that's the same Jake Maier you're going to get, then I think this Alouettes team, it's their game to lose as far as I'm concerned. I think if they go in, focused and with just a little bit of a chip on their shoulder for that BC loss, they bring that into Calgary, I think they can get themselves back on track and back to their winning ways.
The Alouettes have split the last 4 in Calgary. And Cliff, this is the first time since 2010 that the Alouettes have gone into McMahon with at least 9 wins on the year. Mm-hmm. So it's this again. I like the mentality of this. Obviously, and we heard it from Cole. We heard it from guys in post game this past week. It's about, we had one player go, "I don't want to talk about the game. I'll see you guys later." And then it's like, we get it.
Totally get it.
Get on to the next week. Now, the interesting thing about this week too, Cliff, is that the amount of players that we have seen that have practiced so far, and the amount of guys and the names of these guys that we would expect based on some of the roster moves that the Alouettes have made so far this week, that it's very possible that we're going to get multiple guys back off the 6 game. And I would not be surprised just based on just by looking at the transaction wire, we're going to get a certain Canadian back, I think, on the roster. And no, unfortunately not Tyson Philpott. But we think KGG is very, very possible that he will be active. Same thing with Tyler Sneed.
Mm-hmm.
One of the interesting storylines, which really isn't a storyline, is the injury to Marc-Antoine Dequoy. And the only thing that we have seen so far about Dequoy is that he hasn't practiced this week at all. And it has to do with a head injury. Now, as we know, if he did suffer a concussion, you can feel the after effects later on.
Right.
And that's what we're assuming. But there's been no real news coming out of the French or English media about Dequoy as of we're taping. So, Arthur Hamlin seems to be the one who looks like is going to be stepping in. Because I know he was part of one of their post practice scrums this week. Should be interesting. Dequoy was out for 2 games? He's out for 2 games earlier this year with a shoulder injury, and now this.
Mm-hmm.
That seemed to get more press than this did. And I can understand, as we've seen, Coach Moss is keeping things close to the vest. I get it.
As he does.
But again, it's all about the mentality of next man up, who's next out of the hangar. So the Alouettes, again, coming into this game, if everything goes according to plan from what we're seeing from the changes in the transaction wire and on the roster and who's practicing, We're expecting that there will be some new names on the depth chart come Friday. Come Friday when they are released by the league and by the team.
Mm-hmm. And if it turns out that Arthur Hamlin does end up replacing Marc-Antoine Dequoy, I don't see that as a bad thing, because from what I saw of him in camp, he played absolutely outstanding. He was definitely one of those guys, again, not going to replace Marc-Antoine Dequoy other than via injury. Like, he's not going to, force him to be traded or anything like that. But as a rookie safety, I mean, he looked absolutely phenomenal. I mean, his college tape is phenomenal as well. I mean, this is a kid that definitely is, like, his film is nasty. And I imagine the way he's been attacking the position as well, he's been definitely, showing what he can do and showing that he can hang with the big boys, so to speak. So if it ends up that Hamlin is starting at safety for the Alouettes on Saturday, I'm not concerned at all. I think he'll do more than fine. I'm sure Calgary is going to try and maybe pick on him just a little bit, but I mean, he's got some great defensive backs at his side as well that will no doubt help him out if need be. But I think Hamlin can come in and, again, will not replace Marc-Antoine Dequoy. You do not simply replace a Marc-Antoine Dequoy. But if he can come in and be like the quad never left, like there's no liability or anything like that. If he can just come in and play the game that I know that Arthur Hamlin can play, then the Alouettes defense is going to be just fine. If anything, it's just going to showcase another young Canadian superstar in the making, which I'm all for that. So, is it concerning with the quad? Absolutely it is. And hopefully we'll get more answers closer to game time. But if it turns out that young Arthur Hamlin has to be the one stepping in for Dequoy, then the Alouettes will be in a good place. They'll be fine. There won't be any concerns as far as how this defense is going to respond to Hamlin being in the middle as opposed to Dequoy.
Yeah. As of the show today, Jose Barbone is back to the practice roster. Michel Lefurvius is back to the practice roster. Michael Rowe is actually on the active roster. I just real quickly on your thoughts about this, by the way, because they added Lorenzo Burns also to the practice roster. Thoughts on James Morgan being released? Quarterback James Morgan. I know he was a number 4. But thoughts on this? Because usually the Alouettes do have a 4th on their practice roster.
Well, you got to dress 3. So, yeah, to have a 4th just in case is, I mean, again, we've seen it. Cody Fajardo went down to injury. Davis Alexander got banged up. We lost Caleb Evans for the season.
Yeah.
Necessitating the return of Dominique Davis. I mean,
and James dressed for 2? I think it was 2.
2 games.
Yeah. So
I mean,
are the Owls about to sign somebody else? I don't know.
Or possibly bring in somebody. It's hard to say because you want quarterbacks to get reps just in case. And I mean, Fajardo's healthy, Alexander's healthy, Davis is healthy. No problems there. So I mean, it's, if you got those 3 guys in your lineup, a lot of people will say, well, what do you need a 4th quarterback for? But just to have on the practice roster, just in case, someone who knows the playbook, someone who understands, this offense is not a bad thing to have. So it was surprising to see Morgan get released, but I mean, I guess for whatever reason, they feel absolutely confident that, if Cody goes down, obviously Davis Alexander has shown he can step in and lead this team without question. Dominique Davis, despite his gaffe last Friday against BC, he's still money as far as your short yardage specialist goes. I guess the Alouettes truly feel confident that, we got our 3 guys. They're arguably the 3 best, available as far as quarterback goes in this league. So we're good. And if that frees up a roster spot for someone else, again, bringing in a Lorenzo Burns, who, by the way, was coached by Noel Thorpe his first year in Birmingham for the back then the USFL. Played for the Birmingham Stallions, who have won the last 3 championships, 2 of the USFL, and now united with the XFL. Also, still won the championship there. And Tim, fun fact, last time the Alouettes brought in a member of the defending, I guess, XFL/UFL championship, that worked out pretty good for the Alouettes. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh,
Darnell Sankey.
Yep, I knew where you were going with that. I'm curious if anybody who was watching the show or listening knew where you were going with that. Yeah, I know. Can't complain.
Could Lorenzo Burns be the 2024 version of Darnell Sankey? Only time's going to tell, but at least you've got someone with that championship pedigree in your roster and can be a part of this lineup, I'm sure, sooner rather than later. So as far as I'm concerned, this could be one of those sneaky good moves that you don't think about initially, but come November, maybe that's the player that's going to make all the difference in the world.
Exactly. How we do this week? Let us know. Just shoot us a line or a message or DM over on social media. I want to hear your feedback on the show itself. We will be having Flight Deck Live this week, as the game is going to be starting at 7 o'clock Eastern time from Calgary. So expect us online approximately about, since it's an away game, about 10:15-ish Eastern time, but stay tuned to all of our socials for any more information that may come across when it comes to kind of any news or when it comes to Flight Deck Live. And again, a reminder about the second annual fan meetup over for Thanksgiving Monday. I know it's a couple of weeks away, but just want to remind you guys again that we're going to be having that, and try to get some more guys to come out this time around. No, last year it was Mark Waitman. Maybe get Mark to come out again. Maybe some others. Maybe some alumni. Who knows? We'll have to try to keep some surprises from you guys, no matter what. But stay tuned for that also.
And also too, if you're going to order your Flight Deck gear, make sure you do it. I would say now, do it right away, just to make sure you get it in time for the for Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. So yeah, once again, www.flightdeckgear.ca. Whether you grab the cartoon bird shirt, just like the rest of us are going to be rocking, or any of however, whatever shirt you think will work best, by all means, order it up. Come join us at the fan meetup. It's going to be great. Like Tim said, hopefully we can get if we can get some alumni out to join us and be a part of this. I mean, ultimately, you, the listeners, the viewers, we want you there. Make sure you come out for this. I mean, if you're going to the game anyways, right? Because it's Thanksgiving. You got the day off, so yeah, come be a part of this. Come join the celebration. Come join the fan meetup and get to meet us, get to talk to us, and get to join other listeners and viewers of the podcast. I mean, let's face it, the Thanksgiving
partake in the tailgate.
Tailgates are always a good time, right? I mean, that it just makes football even more fun. And then you got us. We're going to try and make it even more fun too. So come on out, show the love, show the support. We appreciate it. So yeah, if you haven't gotten your Flight Deck shirts, you haven't gotten your Cartoon Bird 56 shirt, get on that right now.
Well, we will be talking to you very shortly. Again, stay tuned to our next episode of Flight Deck Live. But if not, we will speak to you on the podcast next week. So for everybody here, it's Flight Deck for Cliffy D. I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.